Good afternoon, everyone. It's Aaron Simons here in San Diego. And so today we're talking about baby boomer listings. And the reason why we created this course and why we're talking about it today is a little background on it. I've been working with Chris Heller here in San Diego for going on 12 years. I'm his listing partner here on the team. And what we noticed is about 7-8 years ago, we had a lot of clients coming to us that were either inheriting properties via probate, via trust, or we had a lot of clients coming to us their parents were transitioning into retirement living and they needed advice on what to do with the house and the process. And what we noticed is that they kept running into the same challenges. And so as a result of it, we were able to create a value proposition not only to serve the clients, but then to also create a whole new world of lead generation within this niche. And so that's what we're going to share with you today. Just so you know, for those of you on the call, this will go for about 30 minutes. If you do have any questions, you can simply write it in the chat box on your screen, but be ready to write because I think you're going to get a lot of good information out of today's call. So a couple of things we're going to do. And the first thing is we're going to look at the baby boomer statistics here in the United States, right? Really, how big of an opportunity are we talking about? And when we boil it down, there's really 3 opportunities that exist for baby boomer listings that for us, happen to be highly profitable. Number 1, we're talking about probate listings. Don't roll your eyes. I'm going to go into detail on that. Number 2, we're going to talk about the senior transition program, meaning when a senior has to sell a home and move into retirement living, what are the opportunities there? And the third thing we're going to talk about are the professional referrals. All of the other people that come into contact with baby boomers or seniors that have real estate needs. What can we do to network with those attorneys, with the CPAs? How can we make that part of our business? So when we look at the baby boomer statistics, for those of you that don't know what a baby boomer is, it's someone born between the years 1946 and 1964. Now, baby boomers, their parents are the seniors, right? And the seniors are known as the greatest generation. So what you have to think about is who typically helps seniors make decisions. It's their kids, the baby boomers. So don't collapse those two, baby boomers and seniors, as one group. They are very specific and separate. Now, what we know is that as of today, the senior age group is the largest percent of the population in the United States. It's huge. And what's interesting is that this group, the baby boomers and the seniors, they control over 3/4 of America's wealth. And guess what? Where do you think most people have their wealth tied up? It's not in cash. It's in real estate. So for all of you chasing the millennials, for all you going out there trying to figure out, the next shiny object online to get the millennial buyers, guess what? Gary says it every year on stage. The millennials are broke. They've got college debt. They don't value home ownership. If you want to truly increase your listings and make your business shift-proof, this is the niche to do it. So let's start out first with people's and real estate agents' perception of probate listings. So it's not something that you hear a lot about. In fact, when was the last time you saw someone on stage talking about probate listings? You don't hear it, and there's a couple reasons why. Number 1 is a lot of agents don't even know where to find the leads, right? And we'll talk about that. A lot of people don't understand the actual process of the probate. People assume that it's not a good source of business because people aren't on stage talking about it. People think that if you're going after probate, well, you're an ambulance chaser, or maybe more specifically a hearse chaser. Because guess what? Maybe people think it's an insensitive way to do business. Someone's friend or family member or loved one just passed away, and now we're calling them, asking them if we can sell a house. That seems insensitive. Well, I'm going to share a different point of view with you in a moment. Or people think that it's complicated. There's attorneys involved. There's a court. There's a judge. There's family members. It's got to be complicated. Well, guess what? Not really. So let's first, for a moment, talk about a little bit of a scenario. And I want you guys to take your real estate hat off for a second and pretend that you're not a real estate agent. And I want you to listen to this. So imagine this. Imagine that a friend or a family member passes away. and you're notified that you've been appointed in their will or by the court to settle the estate. And guess what? There's a house involved that was left behind. So imagine this. Imagine that, first off, you're already busy. You've got a job, you've got a family, you've got, recreational stuff going on. You're already busy, and now you've got this put on your plate. And imagine if you've never actually sold a home before. You don't have any real estate experience. Or what if it's been 20 years since you've participated in a real estate transaction? Or what if you show up at the house and there's still personal belongings inside? What if you show up at the house and it needs a lot of work before it goes on the market? Or how about this? What if you show up at the house and there's still people living there and you don't know who they are? And what if all of the above and you don't even live in the same city? Do you think that person might need a little bit of help, right? Do you think that person might be a little bit overwhelmed? Do you think that person may not know exactly where to start? Guess what? Do you think their attorney is going to hold their hand through the process? Look, as real estate agents, our clients expect us to drop their kids off at school and walk their dog, right? That's the level of service that our clients expect from us if they choose us to list their home. Do you think the consumer has the same expectations about attorneys? Do you think the consumer expects attorneys to give this high level of customer service? They don't. And guess what? Because they don't, attorneys don't hold their client's hand. I mean, here's a little secret about the probate business. One would assume that an attorney would refer someone to a real estate agent if there's a house to sell, right? That would be an easy thing to do. We're very referral-minded in our business of real estate. But what's interesting is that only happens less than 30% of the time. Less than 30% of the time will the attorney actually refer their client to a real estate agent. And there's a lot of reasons why they don't. But the point is, there's a huge opportunity there. You've got someone who's overwhelmed. You've got someone who may not know what to do, where to start. And as real estate agents, we have all the tools, to take care of that person, do we not? If we walked into a house, in fact, if you just take a normal listing, if we walk into that house and they need some help on the staging, we can give that advice, right? If they need some help on getting the property into selling condition, we can give that advice, right? We have the tools. Probates are no different. It's not an insensitive way to do business. In fact, as real estate agents, we are a critical piece of the process. Now, imagine this, going back to the attorney for a second. What if you were a busy attorney and you're working on this case and you can't close the file and get paid until all the assets, including the real property, have been settled? Might you not be excited to hear from a great real estate agent who can come in, take good care of the client, get the property sold for top dollar so they can move on to the next case? Absolutely. And as far as probate being a complicated process, well, you know something? It's really not. People assume, and if you don't know, the average probate case from when it gets filed to when it gets discharged from the court, the average takes anywhere from 6 months to a year, which is a long time. But what people don't know is that if there's real property, oftentimes that property can be sold within the first 30 to 60 days, and you get paid, right? So it's not a long process. It's not very complicated at all. And as real estate agents, we are a key piece of the process. Now, before I get into the senior transition, a lot of people say, well, what do you say if someone has just had a loved one pass away, or a friend? What do you say when you call them? Because that's what we do. If we want to get this business, be very clear. It's prospecting-based, marketing enhanced. So if you think it's an easy way to just create a bunch of mailers and then people start calling you, that's not the case. This truly is a marketing or prospecting-based business. So what do we say? It's a simple script, all right? And I'm going to give it to you right now, so be ready to write. We're calling an executor, right? We're calling the person who's in charge of the estate. What we say to them is this. Hi, this is Aaron at the Heller Real Estate Group. I was calling about the home on XYZ Street. I saw it show up in the probate court, and we specialize in selling probate real estate. And I just wanted to see if the family had any interest in selling the property. That's a pretty easy script, right? Nothing wrong with that. We're not being overly aggressive. We're not, chasing them down. We're just simply calling, letting them know we saw the case filing, we saw there's a house, we specialize in selling probate properties, and guess what? Just want to see if the family had any interest in selling the home. Very simple script. Now, what's interesting about probates and what I love about this source of business and even into the senior transition is it's a fact that the population in the United States is aging, all right? People are not getting any younger. And I already said that, the majority of the population is comprised of baby boomers and seniors. That is the largest group of, by percentage of population in the United States. And they're aging. So what's interesting is, as we see a shift looming, or some of you might already be in the middle of the shift, if you want to truly shift-proof your business, if you want to source a business that's going to continue to grow each year as the population ages and more people are passing on, probates is that piece. Now, what's interesting about that is that this will continue to grow regardless of whether it's a buyer's market or seller's market, whether the economy is good or bad, right? Whether it's Trump or Hillary, whether interest rates are 3.5% or 6.5%. The probate business is going to continue to grow. And what's great about it is that it does not have peaks and valleys. So what I mean by that is if you look at expired listings, with expired listings, I don't know if you guys have noticed over the past few years when most markets have been really hot, there haven't been a whole lot of expires, right? That part of our business went down a little bit as fewer homes expired and more sold. Now, as the market shifts, we'll continue to see more expires coming back on the market, right? But, it can be a seasonal business. Same thing with for sale by owners. In a very good market, you're going to see a lot of for sale by owners. As the market shifts, you're not going to see as many for sale by owners. Those two sources of business, which is what you hear people talk about all the time, have peaks and valleys. Probate business does not. And what I love about it is not only is it shift-proof, not only is it going to continue to grow each year with the opportunity, guess what? There's no cost involved. How much does it cost you to pick up the phone and make a phone call, right? Everyone wants to go and spend all this money on Boomtown and on this and that, on whatever. Guess what? This is a free source of business. Of course, it costs you time, but Gary says our job every day, 2 hours a day, is lead generation. This becomes part of your lead generation. Now, maybe I did it backwards in talking about probate first and now the senior transition, because let's rewind a little bit and let's talk about before people pass on. And I know it could be a little bit of an interesting topic to talk about death, but guess what? It's a reality. So let's now talk about the opportunities that exist in the senior transition with senior transition. And first off, by the way, when you think of assisted living, when you think of retirement living, I have very fond memories as a child going with my grandfather to visit his sister, my great aunt, and I can still remember that of a convalescent home. There are so many types of retirement living out there today. You've got independent living, you've got assisted living, you do have convalescent living, you've got skilled nursing, but the point is, I walk into some of these communities and it's like walking into the Bellagio. These things are nice, and I'll tell you what, it's one of the fastest growing development areas. We see so many senior living facilities being built just within San Diego. I mean, we probably at least have 25 or 30 of them, and growing. They continue to grow. And the best part about it is, guess what? Within each community, within each building, they have sales reps, right? How do you think they fill the beds? And so when we're talking about this, all right, so when we're talking about this, we have to look at what the challenges are. So I want you to imagine this scenario. So imagine that a senior, either on their own or by the urging of their family, finally comes to the realization that it's time to sell the family house and move into assisted living or retirement living. And so they go to the retirement community to take a look at it with their family, and they go there probably not excited about it, but they know that it's in their best interest. So they go, they take a tour, right? Maybe they see some friends that live there. Maybe they see the perfect unit for them. Maybe they see all the activities, and guess what? They start getting excited about the opportunity. And they like what they see, yet they can't move in because they first have to sell their house because they need the equity out of that house in order to make the move. So they leave there excited. The sales rep's excited. He's got another client that he's going to sign up, but he can't until they sell their home. And then what happens is the senior gets home. And then they start thinking, right? They start thinking about all the things that they've accumulated in their home over the last 30 years. And then they start thinking about what they're going to take with them. And then they start thinking about what they're going to leave behind. And then they start thinking about all the things that they're going to leave behind and what's going to happen with those items. And then when they get done thinking about all the personal property, they start thinking about the house. You know, they've got a leaky faucet. They've got old carpet. They've got a roof that needs to be repaired. They've got landscaping that needs to be done. Who's going to do all of this stuff? And then when they get done thinking about the house, they start thinking about the actual logistics of making a move. Who's going to pack me up? How are people going to find me when I move? Will my phone number change? I mean, so very quickly, their excitement turns into overwhelm, and then what happens, right? The sales rep is calling him, and his calls are going unanswered. And he's sitting there dumbfounded because he thought he had a great prospect. They left excited, and now all of a sudden, it's radio silence, right? Because the senior is on complete overwhelm. So the key to the transition process and our value proposition, where we become the hero, is managing the process for the senior. What I mean by that is same thing with the probate. If we were to take on this scenario, we'd probably be able to, walk the client through, the logistics of whether they need to be referred to an estate sailor or an organizer. We can walk them through that, right? If work needs to be done on the property, we know how to handle that. We've probably got the vendors in place who can, take care of that for them. We can manage those logistics. So the key to the transition program is actually walking them through the steps, right? Taking the overwhelm, creating logical steps to it so they and their family can see light at the end of the tunnel. And so what we've done is we've created what we call our 5-step transition program. This is the solution, because when you go and you meet with a community or you meet with a sales rep, they don't want to know that you have your SERS and that you're a great agent and you take care of people. That's not their problem. Their problem is seniors come excited, leave excited, and then all of a sudden it's radio silence. We have the value proposition, we have the program to bridge that gap, right? So that we can keep the seniors excited and keep moving them forward. So we have a simple 5-step program. And when you talk to them and you say, I've got a program, now all of a sudden they want to hear it. When you talk to them and say, hey, we're a good agent, they don't care about that. So here's our 5-step program. This is their transition program. So write this down, all right? And by the way, this 5-step program I'm going to share with you right now is the exact same program we use when we're working with probates, when we're talking to executors, when we're working with attorneys, because the process is the same regardless of whether they're still here with us or not, right? It's the same process in working people through the overwhelm and having them see light at the end of the tunnel. So, all right, step 1, we call the initial consultation. Step 1 is where we're going to go and we're going to meet with the family. We're going to meet with the senior and their family, right? Because you always have to have their adult children present because they're the ones usually making the decisions. And we're going to look at the home and come up with a game plan, right? That's step number 1, is the initial consultation. Now, step number 2, we call getting organized. Once we figure out the time frames, right, then we're going to schedule with our home organizer to go to the home with the sellers, determine what items they're going to take with them to their new unit, as well as what items the family would like to keep. That's step number 2, getting organized. What the senior is going to take with them versus what the family is going to keep. Step number 3, we call taking inventory. This is where we figure out what we're going to do with all the stuff that the senior and their family doesn't want. So is there going to be an estate sale? Is there going to be a garage sale? Is it all going to be donated? Or is it all going to be thrown away? Right? Step number 3, we call taking inventory. Step number 4 is called preparing the home for sale. So this is where we look at the house, and if there's anything that needs to be done, painting, handyman, flooring, landscaping, etc., this is where we get all of that coordinated. And then lastly, step number 5, we market and sell the home. So you can see what we've done is we've taken someone who's on complete overwhelm, we've given them a simple 5-step plan on what we're going to do to move the process forward. That right there solves the biggest problem that the sales reps have at the retirement communities. And by the way, this also, again, because this is the same 5 steps that we use on the probate side also, this is our value proposition. We just call it, on the probate side, we call it clean out to closing. This is the same 5 steps that we walk people through. And you want to know what's interesting? These are the same 5 steps that we use on any listing we take. Think about it. When you go on a listing appointment, this is exactly all you're doing with your client. So all we're doing is taking what we already do and repackaging it in a way that it makes sense for someone who's in a probate situation, or it makes sense for someone who has a senior or a family member that's transitioning. Very, very simple. And then the third thing that we talk about in the course is we talk about our professional referral network. Because here's the reality. There are professionals out there every day that come across clients that have real estate needs. The question is, are they referring them to you? So, all right, I'm going to give you one more scenario. Got a lot of scenarios today. One more scenario that I want you guys to think about. So, when you guys are working with a buyer, and the buyer closes escrow, and maybe it's a family or maybe it's a couple, whatever, do you think that it might be a good idea, if they haven't already, for them to put that home into a trust, to do a little bit of estate planning? It's absolutely a good idea for them to do that. The question is, at the closing, do you pick up the phone and call a great estate planning attorney and let them know that you have a referral for them? The answer is no. No agents do that. Very few agents do that, I promise you. Now, what's interesting is attorneys and CPAs, they do the same thing, right? They come across clients that have real estate needs, yet they're not picking up the phone making the referral, not because they don't want to, not because we don't want to, it's because they get busy in their business, right? You have a closing, you're moving on to the next deal, the next fire, the next client, the next whatever. You just got busy. However, if a great estate planning attorney were to call you each week or each month and ask you, hey, do you have anyone that has a need I can help with? Chances are you'd probably be able to say, yeah, in fact, I do know of someone that needs to trust. We just closed property, just closed escrow, and they've got a house, blah, 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 right? Just as if you were to call that attorney on a regular basis and ask them if they came across anyone that has a real estate need, they would probably be able to say, you know something? I did. And that's the whole key to the professional referral network, is that we need to not only get in front of people, attorneys, CPAs, financial planners, whatever, right? Anyone who we know that's going to come into contact with someone who have that might have a real estate need, share with them our value proposition so they see that we know what we're doing. We see that we can take care of their clients. And if we, on an ongoing basis, treat them just like we do our past client database, right? Maybe we're going to call them more frequently because the odds of them coming into contact with someone who has a real estate need is usually, more likely than our past clients. But if we were to treat them where we're calling them, we're emailing them, we're checking them in on a regular basis, asking for referrals, guess what? They would have them for us. They absolutely would. And you want to know what's interesting? Because we talk to a lot of attorneys that handle probates and trusts and all of that. And I always ask them, where does your business come from? And guess what the #1 answer is? Referrals from other professionals, right? So you talk to an estate planning attorney or you talk to someone who does a lot of probate, most of their business comes from CPAs and financial planners and other attorneys. So they're already in on, that game. The interesting thing is they just aren't sending outbound real estate referrals to real estate agents for whatever reasons. So I always say, add to your professional referral network, right? And it's very simple. Look, all you have to do is look at your current and past professionals that you've given business to and ask them. So here's what I like to do. This is so easy because you could make it complicated. You could cold call. You could do all of that, but watch this. Look at, you all filed your taxes this year, right? Say yes. Yes. Okay, good. And most of you probably used a CPA to do that, right? Say yes. Okay, good. So what you do is you go to your CPA and you say, Mr. and Mrs. CPA, who do you usually refer your clients to for estate planning? And then guess what? They're going to give you an estate planner. And now you're going to call that estate planner and said, hey, so-and-so, my CPA, thought it might be a good idea for us to connect. Would love to sit down with you. Okay, good. So now you just had a warm transfer to an attorney. Then when you're in front of that attorney, you're going to say, oh, Mr. and Mrs. Attorney, who do you refer your clients to, right, that have financial planning needs? And guess what? They're going to now refer you to a financial planner. So you're going to call the financial planner and say, oh, so-and-so attorney thought it might be a good idea for you and I to connect. I'd love to sit down with you. So now you're going to go and sit down with the financial planner. And then you're going to ask the financial planner, Mr. Financial Planner, who do you typically refer your clients to that have, accounting needs, right? And guess what? They're now probably going to refer you to a different attorney. Then you see what I'm saying? You keep asking other professionals for referrals to other professionals, and it's a very warm way to get in front of other professionals, to create a relationship, to start asking for referrals. Look at your past clients. Look at your center of influence. Who are professionals that you could refer business to? Every client that we have in our database, I always put in their occupation. And it's actually a searchable field in our database, right? Because just by asking what they do, you never know where there might be an opportunity, right? If you really wanted to, you could introduce yourself to businesses near you. A lot of our market centers are in office complexes. Guess what? Next door to us, we have a law firm. On the other side of us, we have a divorce attorney. He gives us business, right? And downstairs, we have a custom home builder who we just sold a house to for one of his admin gals, all right? And a lot of professionals have association meetings. Estate planning attorneys usually meet once a month. CPAs like to get together. Divorce attorneys get together. If you go on meetup.com, if it's working in your area, what you'd find is that there's a lot of great meetings that you could go to that you could network if you needed to. All right? So again, in the course, we cover 3 simple topics: the probates, the senior transition program, and the professional referral network. What I do is I go into extreme detail on each one with the scripts, with the process, with the marketing materials. We give you our full playbook. All right? The next launch is Monday, October 24th. It's 1 p.m. Central Time. It's a 16-week course. I do 4 masterminds throughout those 16 weeks. All the sessions get recorded. They're available for playback, after the course. If you're interested in it and you sign up as a thank you for being on the webinar, you do save $100 on the course. All right. So I know a couple of you had questions as we were going here. I'm going to go ahead and see what I can answer for you before we wrap up. Okay, so someone asked a really great question on how we check, where do we find the probate leads is what I'm boiling that down to. So where we find our probate leads is at the probate court. Now, every county, every jurisdiction is going to be different, all right? However, if you wanted a step 1 on what to do, just Google whatever your court system is or probate cases in your city, right? You'll find the website for your local courthouse. On that website somewhere, you're probably going to see probate or whatever, or you'll see new case filings. Every website's going to be different. I'll tell you this, it does take a little bit of detective work in the beginning until you figure out the system, until you figure out how your system works. So for us in San Diego, I can go online and I can get the partial information. I can see the case number, I can see the attorney who filed it, I can see the name of the decedent, the dead person, and I can see the name of the petitioner, the proposed executor. What I can't see is if there's real property and or contact information, for anybody. For that, I have to actually physically go to the courthouse on their computer and look it up. Now, there are some third-party services out there that exist that will do all of this for you. If you Google it for your area, if you Google it, you'll probably find them. I'm a big proponent of learning the process yourself first, making sure that if you are going to subscribe to a service, that it's accurate and that it's timely, because with anything, the early bird gets the worm. We want to get to them as early in the process as possible so we can create that relationship. All right? So good question. All right, guys, and gals, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you being on this call. I hopefully look forward to having you guys on the course that starts on October 24th. It's a great course. it's shift proof, and it's all listing focused. And the best part about it is everything that we talk about in the course as far as setting up the systems is free. What I mean by that is I'm not teaching you how to go spend a bunch of money to try and market your self listings. What we're talking about is going and getting business the way Gary teaches us to do lead generation every day. So with that said, I thank you for your time. I thank you for being on the call. Look forward to talking with you guys in the future. Get out there, go make some money. We'll talk with you down the road. See you, everybody.